UTMB Health, working together to work wonders.
My dear George, I have at long last arrived in Galveston Harbor. We sailed into the Deepwater port on Sunday last, after being tossed about the Gulf by harsh east winds. The sights that greeted us are astounding. The city rises low from the sea, with streets made of packed shell and sand. I did not count the wharves, but they are lined with storage bins bursting with grain. There are rich oyster beds, and fishing, and merchants, and immigrants from France and Germany, from Mexico and Spain. I will make my fortune here, I am certain of it. And one day, dear brother, you must join me.
What extraordinary thoughts John Seeley must have entertained as he embarked on his journey in 1846. Undoubtedly, he encountered rough seas and strong winds, fear and loneliness. But the adventure and mystery of a new frontier drew him to this barrier island. Perhaps the same adventure that 3 decades earlier beckoned his parents to cross an ocean in search of a new world. Seeley was one of 10 children born to Irish immigrants who settled in Pennsylvania's Wyoming Valley. In his early teens, he apprenticed himself to a shopkeeper in Kingston, learned the trade, and at age 24, set off for the new state of Texas to make his mark. In Galveston, Seeley found work in a dry goods store where he made friends with the company bookkeeper, John H. Hutchings. Within a year, the two young entrepreneurs pooled their savings and struck out on their own for Sabine Pass. 7 years later, Seeley and his partner would return to Galveston with enough gold to launch an empire. By the mid-1800s, Galveston was a booming frontier, blessed with 10 bustling wharfs, bookkeepers and artists, a beer house, a lightning rod agent, a post office that handled 30,000 letters a year, and a chamber of commerce. But the island was also plagued by a tropical climate that spawned both deadly fevers and fearsome storms. As Seeley, joined at last by his brother George, amassed his fortune, he could hardly have known he would one day ignite a medical renaissance that would touch the world. Medical care on the low-lying island was rife with contradictions. There were plenty of doctors, but few had more than a year of formal training. Some had none, having earned their diplomas by mail. The island's only hospital was a 1-story-high, shingled shack that stood on the edge of a sea swamp. A second hospital was erected in 1845 at 9th Street and Strand. A medical college, housed above Mrs. Geppinger's confectionery shop, opened its doors in 1865 and closed 8 years later. Another followed on its heels. Medical musical chairs continued to haunt the community. Then, following an intense competition for a state-supported medical school, in 1881, the voters spoke. The medical department of the University of Texas belonged in Galveston. But 9 years would pass before their wishes would materialize. Seeley and his heirs would be instrumental in the state's decision to start construction. John Seeley was not a medical man. He was a keen businessman who built a banking empire in a state that had once prohibited banks. Seeley helped form the state's first public utility, the Galveston Gas Company. He was a key figure in chartering the Galveston Wharf Company. and he built a railroad. Seeley was also a husband and a father. In 1857, he married Rebecca Davis of Bedford, Pennsylvania. 2 children were born to the couple, John Hutchings Seeley and Etta Jane, who would later be known as Jenny Seeley Smith. When Seeley died in 1884, he had clearly left his mark as a businessman and a civic leader. But generations to come would best remember him for his tradition of giving. In his will, John Seeley provided $50,000 for a charitable purpose. His wife Rebecca and brother George would build a hospital with the gift, the John Seeley Hospital. They made only 2 stipulations. The hospital would treat the poor, and when the time came, it would be transferred to the university. Galveston had been without a hospital for 3 long years, and the university's medical school remained no more than an idea penned on parchment. Seeley's gift was the key that would open the doors to both. On January 10, 1890, John Seeley Hospital accepted its first patients. That same year, Dorothea Fick, a private nurse employed by the Seeley family, formed the John Seeley Hospital Training School for Nurses. The first class was made up of 18 young women. Spurred by the Seeley generosity, the legislature responded, and the medical department of the university at last became a reality. Like their father before them, John Seeley II and Jenny Seeley Smith continued the family's philanthropic tradition. He paid for improvements and repairs after the 1900 storm and met the hospital's monthly deficit on a regular basis. She insisted that both a woman's hospital and a nurse's home be built. Together, they contributed nearly $1 million of their own money to the John Seeley Hospital. By 1919, the medical branch had an enrollment of 250 students. The signs of continued need and continued growth were evident. In 1922, John and Jenny formed the Seeley and Smith Foundation. Their desire was to ensure a permanent source of support for the John Seeley Hospital, which had become the medical centerpiece for the University of Texas Medical Branch. The original board of directors included the Seeley offspring, Jenny's husband R. Waverly Smith, Dr. Edward Randall, Fred Catterall, Charles Peake, and Edward Cohn. All were committed to the progress of medical science. What began with a 128-bed hospital constructed on a block of ground in 1890 has geometrically exploded into a world-class medical and research institution. The transition has been remarkable. Impressive as it is, the Foundation's support has not been limited to brick and mortar. It has provided funds for the high-tech world of machine vision, miraculous devices and computers that allow doctors to peer inside the body and decipher secrets that can save lives. It has paid for the technology that offers hope to a spectrum of patients: the aged, the young, the unborn. It has even provided a home away from home. Yet it is not the past, but rather the future that has always engaged the imagination of the Seeley and Smith Board of Directors. True to form, they are meeting it with vision and open hands. A revised charter has propelled the Foundation's commitment to the forefront of biomedical research. It is research that may help us unravel the mystery of cancer. It is research that will enhance medical care and treatment and may lead us to a cure for Alzheimer's. It is research that could one day provide nourishment to starving populations in distant lands. It is research from a barrier island that is building a bridge to a better world.